Algorithmic pricing is one of the current application of machine learning that we have today that is fairly used in our daily lives. There have been a lot of arguments regarding whether it is ethical or not, and today I'll be interviewing 5 of my friends on their opinion of algorithmic pricing.
Well, basically, this interview is about algorithmic pricing. So there are two kinds of algorithmic pricing. The first kind is pricing discrimination. What it means is basically, say if we have the same product, we want to buy the same stuff, but we will have different prices based on our economic status that the computer algorithm calculated. Say it's because of our location. I live in a poor area and you live in a rich area. Then the same backpack we have, you're gonna pay $30, while I'll pay $20. So do you think this kind of algorithm for pricing discrimination is ethical or not?
I think if it's like for the same product, same quality, I think it's unethical because you're discriminating based on income.
Yeah, but with this kind of design, I guess it will allow poor people to buy things they used not able to afford.
I mean, then it's not really fair then though, because I mean like for like products, I don't think this type of like price discrimination should be allowed. I think that if like you were to help, I guess, like people with a lower income like buy the same thing, there should be like government benefits or like subsidies for that sort of thing rather than like price discrimination.
I feel like if you think like logically, I feel like it makes sense because if it's like, oh, you have a lot of if a person has a lot of money, theoretically they should be able to afford like an extra $10 for a backpack, whereas someone who's poor, like that can't afford that much, like especially if, like coming from someone who's like has the background for like a lower income family, like my family had like to struggle a lot to like pay for certain things, because like we just couldn't afford it. But then like you see these other people, I see these other people at school, like they have like a fancy iPhone or like fancy clothes when like I just couldn't afford that. So in a way, like I think it's fair, to make everything like even in life, I guess. But at the same time, like it is like controversial. So ethical, kind of. Like it's not really a yes or no answer. I don't know what you're looking for, but like I'm just gonna say kind of because like you can like see both sides of it. So, but like coming from my personal opinion, like I can see why it would make sense.
I think it can be applied in ethical ways. However, I feel like it can also be a slippery slope into unethical territory. So, for example, I think that could be a nice thing when it comes to certain, let's say, like wants rather than needs. So that might work, but I feel like when it comes to like pure necessities, once you start saying that if you're of like a higher like socioeconomic status, you have to pay more for necessities, that can become a gray area, because then it's like, what do you count as like a necessity, or what do you count as something that should be based upon a socioeconomic scale, or what should be like a flat charge all around. And so I think once like that debate is where you can start getting into like moral gray areas. So I think like the idea itself can have some like really like cool and ethical applications that can help those that are impoverished or of like lesser means, achieve better like standards of living. However, you just have to be difficult. You just have to be like very deliberate with its implementations to make sure you don't go into unethical territories.
That's tough. Because charging someone more for the exact same product is like paying someone less for doing the exact same work, right? It doesn't sound quite fair. But
Yeah, but that kind of always happens.
it does happen, but people are against it, right?
Yes.
So, and people would be against. I think. You know how ethicness can be like a spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Ethical. I think it's like pushing the unethical side.
But what do you think about the cases where it allows people who are less wealthy to afford the same product?
I see. But perhaps the solution is not changing the prices, but changing the welfare that they get. So they have, the same means of buying, So I guess it's dependent on where you want to, hit the problem.
Well, it feels kind of like tax tiers. Like you charge people more, or like you give people higher taxes if they're rich. I mean, like it sounds like this algorithm is basically milking people for all they're worth, right? Like if you can give us money, give us the money. I wouldn't really say it's unethical, but I wouldn't say it's ethical either. I mean, like you're basically saying like on one hand you're like technically you're making it more affordable for people who don't have as much money, but you're also saying like for just because someone who like has more money, like they have more money, like you just because someone has more money you want more money from them, but like it doesn't feel right to say that, because like just because they have more money doesn't necessarily mean that like more of their money should be going towards this one thing, because they might have like a lot of other concerns going on. It feels like it feels greedy in a way for that to for like that kind of pricing to occur. Yeah, I don't know.
Also, there's another type of algorithmic pricing is basically called dynamic pricing, where basically the same backpack, it'll charge all of us the same. It's like Amazon would charge all of us like $20 today. However, tomorrow it'll be $23 for everyone, and the day after will be 21 or 25. So it's always fluctuating, and then there's no base price. So on that type of situation, would you think is ethical?
I feel like it's more ethical than the other one, because you are giving like the same price to everybody, and it's not like you're saying like, oh, this person has like more money so I can take it. It's just like if someone sees something that they want and like it's at a price they can afford and they're willing to pay at that time, then they'll buy it. I guess like you feel a little disappointment when you see oh, like you could have gotten the same thing for like a lower price, but it's not like you're seeing, oh, somebody else could get the same thing for a lower price. It's just like, I mean, like you already paid for this thing at a higher price, which means you were willing to pay for it. You were willing to like sacrifice this money for that good, and like you were fine with it initially. So like it's not like
it's not like devastating, or it doesn't feel like really unfair that that like you could have gotten a lower price or something. It just feels like, oh, you missed your chance, but like you still got what you wanted. It feels more ethical.
Okay.
Yes.
What about a case that say if something is something that we all need? So it's not something we want, it's something we need. But the price for what we need kept fluctuating. So for the poor people, they are not able to afford it. Because
like something like medicine or
like
something
medicine,
like that, right?
or like even like I don't know, like tampons.
Okay, yeah, for that, I feel like for like goods with like that much value that like you really need them, I feel like we shouldn't be like doing like have fluctuating prices on those. Like aside from like market value prices, like if it's actually influenced by the economic market, sure, that makes sense. But if it's just fluctuating just because like Amazon wants to get more money one day than another or something, and they're just trying to like
What if it's mostly based on like supply and demand? So basically, more people want it, so they raise the price.
Yeah, that's true. But like it feels like for something like that's so necessary, we do want to have like a baseline price, like because we want to like set it at the right value so that like companies can like profit because they are like supplying this, but also like it's just we should have like a ceiling value for these things so that everybody who needs these goods can actually afford them.
I feel like it's a little more ethical, if only because I feel like that is something we kind of see every day. Like, just like, I guess like even like oil or gas prices, they're right now they're like fluctuating like crazy because of the war in Ukraine and the war between like Ukraine and Russia. But like, like based on like just events throughout the world and just like I feel like even like the time of year it is, like goods can fluctuate like that. So, I feel like if everyone is subject to the same sort of price fluctuation, then it's a little more ethical.
But what about like is something that it's like an essential need, like say like food or like water, anything like that kind, and it kept fluctuating, and that will cause people who are not as well off not being able to afford those essential needs.
Well, when it comes to then if it comes to like necessities, then I don't think it's very fair to have that sort of price fluctuation. But then I don't know. I feel like that's also probably a good economic policy to have, just because sometimes I feel like if you have like price fluctuations for necessities like that, maybe it like encourages people to save more, which could limit spending in the economy. But I don't know. I feel like that's a really hard question. I feel like fluctuation then for basic goods like necessities, it shouldn't really be fluctuating too much, I guess.
Okay, so there could be like a percentage, you mean? Like,
percentage, yeah, I think that could work. Or like maybe like basic goods, like they don't fluctuate as much as like other commodities.
So do you think the government should have like a set price range for these commodities?
Set price range. I think a set price range for like a basic goods is good, but I think for like other commodities, it's probably fine to leave it as is.
Much of the product do they have in storage? Yeah, so and a lot of times it's also based on location as well.
probably not as much on board with it because I think like changing the prices because maybe changing the prices is usually based on what the supplier has available. It's based on the supplier, not the consumer. So I think that's a little more unfair because if you talk about the first kind, right, that's based on the consumer. The consumer, has the ability to buy. But now you're just considering the interest of the company. So it's a bit more.
But sometimes say like in a case of disaster and say like Uber would raise its price, so there will be more drivers to where the scenario happened. So therefore, more people technically would get rescued. What do you think of that kind of scenario?
Wait, what? So Uber raises its price.
So more drivers are willing to go to where the scenario happens.
So Uber raises its salaries, but not its costs, or also its costs. Like, do you charge more for the Uber?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I still think that's a little, not fair to the consumer. I think that yeah, I think that's not fair to consider because like wouldn't it piss you off if you bought something and the next day it goes down like $5? And just makes shopping quite an unpleasant experience. You know what I'm saying? And maybe it's not even a good business decision in general, like whether it's ethical or unethical. Maybe business would not want to do that because people would be quite frustrated while shopping.
But what about like you just bought something today and then the price raises the next day, and you're like, oh, I'm really happy that I bought it today.
Yeah, but it's the same thing as stocks, right?
I think for that one, I would be like less like I would say for that situation, I would be less okay with it because there's no like regulations on that. Like it's just like random. Like you don't know like what you're gonna be paying. Like imagine going to a grocery store and like an apple now costs like $9 for each apple. Like I think that's like kind of ridiculous. So I think like in comparison to the first situation, this situation seems worse because like I said, there's no regulation. Like for the first situation, like you can like sell an item based on a certain level of income for all of that income, whereas for this one it's like randomized. And even still, like for this situation, the rich can still afford to pay whatever price that is because they're rich, but theoretically the poor can only afford to pay like the lower like prices. So
I think that can be abusive to those of lesser means, such as like everything's based off of supply and demand, but if it's like too dynamic, I believe that I think a good example would be like concert tickets. So when let's say like there's like a high like demand for these tickets, right? But a lower supply, you see these tickets can go all the way up to like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars, to where people like even we can say like normative means can no longer afford to buy what were once affordable tickets due to such low supply and high demand. And so I would be more against the implementation of such dynamic pricing, such that things like that, like examples like that, can happen to even more, like to like necessities and such, where you see like if you have, I guess, super high demand, like a demand shock within like medicine, for example, where all of a sudden increases, when medical companies now all of a sudden say, oh, let's raise our prices, to match with the higher demand of this medicine, and now those who are impoverished can't afford it, or even less necessary things for the items that still increase standards of living, where it can make someone feel lesser than just because it's in higher demand or lower supply. I think that can really mess over people with lower means. So I'd be more against that overall.
Thank you. That's all for the interview.